My worst school experience. The corridor of shame. So here's the story of my absolute worst school experience. The day that pretty much broke my confidence and changed how I looked at people forever. I grew up in one of those small towns where everybody knew everybody. Schools weren't just about education. They were like a stage where your entire worth got measured by grades, behavior, or how well you fit in. My school was strict, old, and run by teachers who either genuinely cared or seemed to hate their jobs. There was no middle ground. Me? I was an average kid. Not dumb, not a genius. Just floating in the middle, hoping nobody noticed me too much. I wasn't popular, I wasn't hated, and for most of my childhood, I thought that was a safe space to be in. This whole nightmare started in 9th grade. We had our midterm exams, and math was my weak subject. I studied, but the paper that year was brutal. I remember sitting there, sweating over problems I had no clue about, and realizing my brain was blank. When results came back, I had scored 28 out of 50. For some of you, that might sound okay, but in my school, anything under 30 was basically a scarlet letter. I felt embarrassed, but my plan was simple: keep my head down, hide the marks, and move on. But of course, life doesn't work like that. Our math teacher was one of those strict, no-nonsense types. She believed humiliation was the best motivator. That day, she walked into class holding our graded answer sheets. My stomach immediately dropped. I had this terrible feeling she was going to read out the scores. I prayed she wouldn't. I actually went up to her before class started, quietly asking, "Ma'am, could you please not say my marks out loud?" She just gave me this cold look and brushed past me. And then it happened. She called out each student's name and score, one after another. Kids were already snickering when someone got a low mark, but when she reached my name, she practically shouted, 28 out of 50. He got a 28. The class erupted. Some laughed, some whispered, some gave me those fake pity looks. I wanted to sink through the floor. My face burned so hot, I could feel it in my ears. I didn't even remember walking to her desk to pick up my paper. I just grabbed it and sat down, staring at the desk so I wouldn't have to meet anyone's eyes. That one moment became fuel for weeks of torment. In the corridor, kids would call me 28. During breaks, they'd ask me fake math questions like, "Hey, what's 14 plus 14? Then laugh when I ignored them. Even kids who usually copied answers from me now felt like they had the right to make fun of me. It wasn't just the marks. It was the way everyone suddenly saw me as weak, and once they smelled blood, they didn't let go. I had a small group of people I thought were my friends, but this experience opened my eyes. They weren't really friends. Before exams, they'd snatch my notebook, telling me to chill, while they quickly studied themselves. Afterward, they'd act like it was funny that I struggled. One even said, "At least you're useful for giving us notes." Like my only value was doing their work. And I let it happen, because I was scared of being completely alone. That's one of the hardest things about school. You cling to people who don't care about you, just to survive. You'd think maybe a teacher would step in, right? Nope. My math teacher kept piling on the pressure, assigning advanced problems, and mocking students who couldn't solve them. She always singled me out because she expected more. I still remember her saying, "If you can't handle this, how will you survive later?" in front of everyone. Another time, I fainted during a presentation about blood circulation. I wasn't sick, it was pure anxiety and stress. I literally collapsed in front of the class. When I came to, instead of concern, the teacher laughed it off, saying something like, "Guess that's one way to avoid presenting." That crushed me even more. I stopped raising my hand in class. I stopped trying to participate. It felt like no matter what I did, I was just a punchline. By the end of that year, I wasn't myself anymore. I avoided talking to people. I avoided walking in groups because I didn't want to be laughed at. Even when I was at home, I replayed moments in my head, thinking of better comebacks I never said. It wasn't just about the exam anymore. It was about the humiliation that stuck, the whispers that followed me everywhere, and the way I started believing I really was a failure. Something shifted the next year. I wish I could say I suddenly became confident and stood up for myself, but that's not what happened. Honestly, I just broke. I stopped caring about fitting in. I stopped hanging out with those fake friends. I even stopped worrying about what teachers thought. Instead, I focused on just getting through each day. Quietly. Alone. Eventually, my parents pulled me out, and I finished my schooling through a homeschool program. At first, it felt like defeat, like I was running away. But slowly, I realized it was survival. I was giving myself space to breathe. Years later, I look back and realize how ridiculous it all was. Those kids who mocked me. Most of them are still in that town, working jobs they hate. The cool kids who thought they were untouchable. They peaked in high school. Me? I went to college, moved away, and started building a life that doesn't revolve around grades or gossip. I won't pretend I'm completely over it. Those scars run deep. But I've learned that the worst experiences don't define you. What defines you is how you move forward. I think about that 28 out of 50 moment more often than I'd like to admit. Not because I still care about the score, but because it reminds me how cruel people can be when they sense weakness. School is supposed to be a place where you learn and grow, but for me, it became a battlefield. And I know I'm not the only one. Everyone has a story like this, being humiliated, bullied, or written off. So yeah, that was my worst school experience. A single exam score that turned into months of misery. But also the start of me realizing I didn't need to live for other people's approval. If you're reading this and going through something similar, trust me, it won't last forever. Those hallways feel like the entire world now, but one day you'll walk out and never look back.